Okay, joining me now on In the Middle with Principal Hayward is Mr. Jack Howley.
Hello.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Mr. Howley is a grade 8 history teacher here at Norton Middle School, and let's get right into it.
Okay.
Okay, where did you go to college?
I went to Providence College. I'm a friar.
Providence College,
Yep.
Okay, that's fantastic. When and where did you begin teaching?
I began here, well actually I was at Mansfield. I was a substitute in Mansfield in 2004. And that's the very beginning of my teaching career. It was full-time. I started here in 2005 at Norton Middle School, and I spent several years at Norton High School as well before I came back to Norton Middle School.
Yeah. What did you teach up at the high school? Obviously in the social studies department, but were there electives or things like that?
Well, I have 2 certifications. So I taught English one of the years I was there too. I taught AP Modern Euro, I taught Freshman English, and I also taught US 1 and World 2. So quite a variety of things over time there,
Yeah, and I know you have a lot of diverse interests in history and so on. What's your favorite part of history to teach, or favorite portion of history?
I think most history teachers would say the Civil War, because it's so defining for our nation, and there's so many heroic figures and infamous figures in it, and it's still affecting our world today, and it had the biggest cost for our nation of, I think, any of the wars that we fought in. And it's just full of interesting and dramatic people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the Ken Burns series
fantastic.
Was huge and really...
I love Shelby Foote, one of the experts they interview. He's deceased now, but what a great storyteller, and the knowledge that he had was just amazing of all the different people. Yeah.
Now, do history teachers have a favorite historian? Do you have a favorite historian?
I like David McCullough. I like H.W. Brands. I think Ron Chernow, who wrote the Hamilton biography, and he has one out about Washington now. I don't know if I have a favorite, but those are 3 that come to mind quickly for me. I think they're all excellent. Yeah.
If you had a student, 8th grade student, who is really passionate, interested in history, is there a book you'd recommend?
It kind of depends on their perspective. Sometimes in the past I've given people the Howard Zinn book, People's History of the United States. When kids are very questioning and very kind of contrary, I've had several students I've given that to in the past. But if somebody is not of that type, I might give them a different book. I recommend David McCullough's 1776, the John Adams book we used in some of the National History Day projects last year. Is a terrific book. There are so many. I think it kind of gets tailored to the kid, though, because usually a kid will express an individual interest in a topic or a different way of approaching a topic, and I might pick a book. I have bought books for kids on many occasions, and usually that's when I'm thinking of what that kid responds to, more than one book that kind of fits everybody.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned National History Day right there.
Yeah.
Tell me about National History Day and your involvement in it.
I first heard about it from Paul Duff, who's retired now, who was our department head for many years, and I've been involved with it for 10 years now, and it's a great program. It has district competitions, which are usually in Foxborough, Brockton, and then we have usually a state competition, which is sometimes at a university or at another high school further in the state. But kids can enter websites or films, or they can do plays or all sorts of things, and they pick a history topic and do tons of research. And the big thing really is primary sources. Instead of working from a textbook, they're reading the letters of someone that they're studying, or they're looking at film footage if it's a recent person of them, or they're talking to people that knew them. So I think when kids get into that immersion, it really responds for them. It's different than whatever they've seen in class before. And it's for special kids that really want to go to that level. But a lot of kids have written me letters after they've done it about what an experience it was in terms of doing that type of research. Very different than anything they'd seen before.
Okay, now I need you to brag a little bit here. I know it's not your style. Last year was a landmark year for National History Day. Really where I learned a lot about it, just because how far you went. So tell me and tell us, everyone watching, about last year, National History Day.
Last year we had 2 outstanding students, Amelia Kirshon and Katie Simpson. They did an original play on Abigail Adams, and they wrote music and lyrics for it. They went to the actual Abigail Adams birthplace and house in Weymouth, Mass, and they put together this amazing collage of not only great research, but great lyrics and music, and acting as well. And we had a number of teachers help us with it, Mr. Kramer and Mrs. Trowny. Mrs. Trowny is a choreographer, has dance background. Mr. Kramer had a lot of set and video background, helped with different props and things too. But the end result was they won first place in the districts, first place in the states, and then they went to nationals, where you have to finish in the top 10, which they didn't.
And that was held where?
University of Maryland.
Okay.
So they had a chance to go to DC and do some things like that. And I think being on the college campus really energized both of them.
Yeah.
But we had a number of kids who had finished third in the state. You have to finish in the top 2 to do nationals. Yeah. And they were the first to break through and finish in the top 2. Yeah. And some of their work is actually available on YouTube, although I think it's sort of restricted audience. But it's amazing. I don't know if you, I think you got to see the video from one of the state competitions.
Yeah. It was.
But just the combination, I think, really enchanted people of the great music and the history. And I think they were inspired by Hamilton, but they wanted to do something different, and so they created kind of a mini Hamilton out of Abigail Adams, and it's really something to see. It was, I think, an amazing achievement for them.
One of the awesome things that happened here at Norton Middle School, and your hard work undoubtedly makes that possible.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, now we're going to change some gears a little bit. Okay. If you were the king of Norton Middle School, what is something that you would require everyone to do, something that's compulsory, and what is something that you might ban?
Something I'd require everyone to do.
Everyone that comes in must.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, there are things that right off the top of my head. I mean, I'm a reader, and I'd like to see kids read more, but I don't know if I'd want to require it. Sure. I think that I don't want to be too heavy-handed with that. But I like to find something that I always say to kids that don't want to read, what are you interested in? Because whatever you're interested in, you can find something to read. But some sort of maybe gentle, friendlier reading program I think would be good to require.
You're a kind king.
Yes. Okay. And what was the other question?
Anything
banning?
You would ban?
It might sound trite, but I just think bullying or cruelty. I mean, sometimes I think kids in the moment might say something a little sharp, and it's a tough age to hear those things.
Just the coarseness of society in general, and not be so coarse
or,
with each other.
Find another word, or even when you know you've done that, apologize, make it right. I think sometimes that leaves a sting when people don't, and that's something I've learned over my time growing into an adult. You've got to kind of make it right when you've said something that stings somebody a bit.
Now, I've learned that you're into running.
Yes.
Yeah. When did you get into running? Have you always been into running? And what are some of the things or milestones or goals that you're kind of setting for yourself with that?
I started running in high school, and I tell the kids this story a lot when I start the year. I was a hockey player, and I was kind of afraid to try out for the high school team. I was afraid I wouldn't make it, and I psyched myself out, and I really secretly wanted someone to say, go try out for the hockey team. But most of my friends were tracksters, and so I joined the track team, and that's kind of just where I went. Became more my passion and interest. And since I've been running regularly again since 2007, I had kind of an on and off thing with running after I got out of high school and college. But since I started in 2007, I've run 6 marathons and 14 half marathons, and pretty much every month I'm running a race somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's a great community of people. There's people from all different walks of life. My running club is doctors and lawyers and postmen and financial planners and any job you can name. It's all different types of walks of life, and it's people 20 to 80.
So connected by the passion. And
and when you're out there running with some guy who's doing a half marathon with you and he's 82, it's pretty inspiring. You know, you're like, wow, I hope I can do that. You know, can I get to that and do that? But there are people like that, real people in the club that can do that. What an accomplishment. That
is. I admire people who run. If I'm running, I need help.
Yeah.
Someone's chasing me or something. Something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sound?
I think the ocean. I love Maine, and I'm always up on the coast in the summer for as long as I can go. There are some islands off the coast there that I love, and just being around that calms me. And I think you know, after a tough year of teaching, I like to be out there and just to hear that.
When you hear that break in, then you know.
Yeah, like a wave, a little bit of wind maybe, or just the rippling noise over rocks. Those are wonderful noises.
Nice. You're a history teacher. You had a time machine. You can go anywhere. Where do you go?
I'm laughing because I always ask my students that question.
Oh, okay.
And you know, I probably need to give it more thought myself. I'm fascinated, I think, in a lot of ways with English history. I would love to be around maybe Queen Elizabeth or Henry VIII or something like that, or even Queen Victoria, or any of the major kings or queens of England. I think that would be just stunning to watch something like that. or to see Lincoln give his second inaugural. That would be an unbelievable experience, just the words, and to hear Jefferson speak or something like that, just to hear the sound of their voice beyond the words and the presence and how they gave a talk. That would really be mind-blowing, I think.
And understanding the impact that would eventually have. What is something that you teach related to Thanksgiving? We're coming up on the holiday that kids find interesting or they didn't know. Is there any element of Thanksgiving that kind of kids go, wow, I didn't realize that? Or we
didn't talk too much about Thanksgiving specifically this year, but in past years, one of the things I brought up that the kids react to is that they didn't have forks. Knives and spoons were what they used for their meals, so forks don't really come into use until the late 1600s. And I always challenge the kids, when you go home to dinner tonight, try to eat without a fork. And they laugh, and they're like, well, I had spaghetti, I couldn't do it, or you know, something like that. Or they say that's easy, or they have different reactions to it. But it helps us understand that things in different time periods were very different. That they're not all the same features and things. They know they didn't have phones, but a fork is something we take for granted. And if you're trying to eat with a knife and a spoon, it's not quite the same thing. We're conditioned. We never really learned to eat that way. So it's a different world back then.
So different. That would have been considered technology back then.
A fork. And that first Thanksgiving, too, since you brought it up, I mean, they didn't have tablecloth or anything. They had 2 to 1 more wampanoags than pilgrims. And they had a lot of food that we probably wouldn't see in typical Thanksgivings. I mean, they had cod and bluefish and striped bass. Some people have fish, but that's not the staple thing. They had stews, and they had deer. So, like, things that we associate with Thanksgiving came a little later. They did have turkey, but it wasn't the typical, you know, Norman Rockwell painting Thanksgiving. I mean, people try to make it like that, and it really wasn't.
That must be fascinating for the kids to find those different kind of quirkier things about you know, Thanksgiving or the holidays of the past that really keep a history class interesting. I know when I was a student, those were the things that just kind of drew me in. Those kind of side small things. So, you know, when you have a teacher who's a great storyteller, great history teachers are always great storytellers, and they add those details and get those hooks. And that's why I became a history teacher when I first went into education, because of history teachers I had had.
We just had something with Norton. We just did Salem witch trials, and I mentioned there's a Norton witch, and I just put it on my Google Classroom, and the kids got very into that. Witch's Bridge, which is not far from where we're standing right now, or sitting right now. And the woman was supposedly seen in 2 places within a few minutes, so they accused her of witchcraft. And I asked the kids, was she a witch? And they all wrote little accounts on Google Classroom. So they get into little stories like that.
Awesome. A lot of stuff in the news about civics, citizenship, being involved. I've actually never seen more people involved in politics and interested in it and what's going on. I think it's a good thing. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in different sides and kind of, you know, the partisanship and things like that, but involvement is high. A lot of people involved. Kids are curious, higher than I've seen in the past, which I think is a good thing. So this question, do you think, and we've got a lot of testing going on, MCAS, and there's a whole debate, and we could have a show just on that. Do you think high school students should have to pass a basic history exam or civics test? And would it look more like an MCAS or maybe a citizenship test?
I think they should. I think it should be, I think it's in the interest of the country. You know, I remember seeing something, it was a post on Facebook a while ago. People used to have to, in 8th grade in the 50s, list the entire president's cabinet. And I don't think most people could do that today. You know, even a really, you know, news hound or someone who's a great history teacher might not be able to do that. But I think if you do know that, you know if they're qualified or not, you know their backgrounds. And I think there's a real benefit to that. And I think people, when I do my mock Congress, a lot of times don't understand the basic systems that the president has to have laws come through Congress and how that works. And that the president can't just pass laws arbitrarily in most circumstances. And I think that if people understand how the government works, they can participate more impactfully. And just being passionate or interested is great, but if you know how the system works, you can make more of an impact. And I think you can understand and support the country better. So,
and I love coming into your classes when you're doing that debate and discussion and mock Congress. Great lessons. Invite me back for sure.
Absolutely,
Okay, a couple more questions, final 2 questions. If there was a movie made about 8 White, okay, a movie made about, is it a horror, a comedy, a drama, an action film, a western, or a sci-fi? And who's the lead character of the teachers that you work with down in 8 White?
I'd call it a madcap comedy, and I'd say probably Mr. Spumuli would be the lead. So he's sort of the clown of the group, and I think he keeps us laughing. But it's a really fun team to work with. Most of the teachers, with the exception of Mrs. S, who I've just met in recent years, most of them I've known for more than 10 years. And they're a really talented, great group of people. I think Mrs. Hall is one of the most dedicated teachers I've ever met in terms of the time she puts in and extra help and her passion for math. And Mrs. Trani has helped me with National History Day for years. And they're all fantastic, and Mr. S is interested in everything under the sun. He's just one of those people. He's just eclectic and has a million different interests. So it's sort of a madcap comedy, and Mr. S has a running joke or gag with just about every teacher, me included. So he's just always needling us, but in a gentle, fun way.
Okay, and final question, coming up on the holiday seasons, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful to be able to help kids get excited, I think, about history, and maybe help them feel good about themselves and their lives. I think this is an age where kids are trying to fit in, and I often try to just tell kids that whatever they are, that's cool. You know, you don't have to try to be this person or that person, and sometimes I like to think that they hear me and that message gets through. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to make kids' lives better. I'm thankful I can run. I had some health issues, and I've come back and I've ran my first half marathon in a while. I'm thankful for my friends and family and the people that are close to me in my life. All those things too, I think.
Absolutely. Mr. Jack Howley, grade 8 social studies teacher at Norton Middle School, a person I admire tremendously. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.